Hello from the Nonprofit Technology Conference, where Andrew and I are walking around and learning about all the cool nonprofit tech that's going on. What are you
It's
seeing
Portland.
in Portland?
Everything's made out of wood and macrame. It's amazing.
And they all have
Incredible.
beards, everyone.
Yes.
So what are you seeing? You've been here many years before.
I have this like my fourth or fifth
Oh, okay.
conference for NTC. There's some virtual ones, but
Yeah.
I don't really count those.
Do you know a lot of people here? Like, do you see a lot of the same faces? And
There are definitely repeats. Yeah, definitely some people that come year in and year out, and always fresh faces.
yeah, the guy I was talking to last night knew everybody here. I mean, he's like, "This is my
Oh,
12th year. I'm kind of an old pro."
yeah.
So yeah, he and his wife both work in the industry, and so come a lot. So
Well, it's big. It's a community event. It's like I think one of the beautiful things about this event. It's really recharging.
yeah,
Like uh, so many nonprofits. There are like what 1.9 million nonprofits in the U.S.
yeah,
and a lot of them are just an executive director and volunteers.
yes,
And maybe even larger. Three, four, five person teams. It can be isolating at times to feel like you have the weight
yeah,
of the world on your shoulders, and you're working really hard, and no one understands exactly what you do. And then you come and meet a community of people who are going through exactly the same
yeah,
thing that you're going through, and then you meet the organizations that you looked up to, like
yeah,
the Audubon societies, and you realize, oh, they have the same problems too,
yeah.
and it scales it in an interesting way, and then creates a really strong sense of community and overall
Yep.
like global justice, which is great.
That's a really good point. I've been in sessions and have it, they always ask like, who's here for the first time? And it's been neat seeing all the hands kind of going up that this is the first time. I also
Yeah.
think, as a marketing agency, when we work with clients, a lot of times the first thing we're doing is reviewing their marketing tech stack and like where their data is all housed so we understand
Mm-hmm,
what we have
mm-hmm.
to work with. And so we're often in six or seven or so tools for every single client. So we see them all. So it's been really neat being here and seeing a lot of those tools are represented here, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but then talking to people about how they're using them because a lot of what we do is, I think you called it digital therapy.
Oh yes, digital therapy.
And
That's
that's
what I
what
call
we do. People are coming. I mean, we're kicking off a client this week that for the last 2 weeks, she's been emailing and saying, "Hey, our contract is up with this particular
it.
platform.
Mm-hmm.
Should we
Yeah.
keep going with it? Should we use this? What else is there? We're exploring
Mm-hmm.
X, Y, and Z." And I like to be able to have a little window, which I think this conference has provided enough. Like I've been meeting with a
Yeah.
lot of the vendors because it's such a nice way for me to see what else is sort of out there in the
Yeah.
marketplace.
Yeah, I think like the technology space has been rife with conversation around like composable architectures and different, everything kind of comes together.
Yeah,
It's not monolith. There was a move towards like more monolithic like DXPs, but that is getting fractured again
yeah,
because the promise of those monolithic solutions hasn't been realized,
yeah,
and the trust, the small amount of trust that those large entities still held is kind of evaporated a little bit with some of those efforts, and that's a good thing for
I think so too.
organizations all over the place that are creating like innovative solutions, but it does displace that responsibility for the composability, like who's doing the composing,
Yeah,
right? And I think there's a role for agencies to play in that, and you're smart to look at the landscape of options out there uh, and provide trustworthy advice that's adapted to the needs
yeah.
of your clients.
I mean, it's a little bit self-serving because, of course, we want to work with the most effective and efficient tools as well. And a lot of the older stalwarts of this
Mm-hmm.
industry don't play well with others, and
Sure.
we have a really hard time moving data between different platforms. And so when you're building campaigns, it's really hard to do that. And so I think what's been neat about
Yeah.
software as a service in the past 5 years is they've first of all they've accelerated at an enormous pace because there's so many problems in the existing platforms, but they all now play well with others, which
Mm-hmm.
is just such a gift because we can actually build tools where we've got certain organizations that need a really high strength and maybe new donor acquisition, and another one
Yeah.
that's got a more membership focused, whatever that looks like, but the data needs to all come into one platform, one CRM, but
Yeah, definitely.
still not great though.
It's hard. It's hard. It can
Yeah,
be hard.
have you
Yeah.
gone to any of the web sessions? I know that's your slant.
Yeah, not yet. I want to go to the next round of talks. There's one on I think large content
Oh, I saw that
migrations,
one.
and
Yes.
that looks interesting.
That one's on my list too. And I also saw some around accessibility, which I actually thought would be a lot more
Well, there
represented
were
in the sessions.
two of the sessions were canceled on accessibility,
Oh, interesting.
and my session was not accepted on
Oh,
accessibility, so I'm feeling a little. But I did talk about accessibility like last year already, so maybe they thought
oh, you did. Good for
it
you.
didn't
Yeah.
play it out.
So,
Who knows?
I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that at least 3 to 5 sessions, every single session is on what?
Uh, a, artificial intelligence,
Generative AI.
AI. But I think I mean, it makes sense. Like
Yeah.
almost half the attendees this year are robots, so we really have to cater to the the audience. So
Yep.
that explains it. Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to choose. Their even the titles were so similar that sometimes I'm
Yep.
like, okay, one of them is AI for marketing, and the other one is marketing with AI. The other one is personalization
They
and
obviously
segmentation
didn't
and
use
AI.
AI
Yeah.
to come up with their titles. Or maybe
So
they
that
all
is
used AI to come up with their titles.
Yeah.
That's why they're all the same.
I like your comment though that they take speaker applications so far in advance in the year. So last
Mhm.
year, the applications are due in September, October, and then by the time the conference rolls around,
No one
ChatGPT
was
had come
talking
out,
about
and
whatever.
yeah, and it was the hottest topic. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to beat because I do apply and speak at conferences as well,
Mhm.
and you realize like I just sent out applications for conferences in October and November,
Yeah.
and like that's probably not even what I'm going to be interested in at that
Yeah.
point, So.
Is this project we're working on going to be done in time
Yeah.
to have a case study?
So true.
Are we still,
Yeah.
we're in the honeymoon period right now, but are we going to be able to stay up on stage and
Yeah,
share the love like
it is.
earnestly?
There's something to be said though for a balance of well, there's a lot of data stuff we've been seeing, and
Mhm.
cybersecurity's been a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of sessions and a
Definitely.
lot of AI.
Mhm.
I'm I'm surprised there hasn't been more around accessibility, only because,
Mhm.
and I know you said you submitted one, but it's becoming a bigger. I'm sure everybody's beat to death on it, but at the same time, we still work with organizations for whom
Yeah.
it's a non-issue and they don't want to invest in it or they don't want to,
Sure.
and so we do what we can, but it's a business use case. So.
It's legislated in a lot of areas, and
We don't
I
build
don't.
without it. I'm just
It's
saying that a lot of organizations are like, oh, we have to. What?
I think here there's there's a high level of consciousness around
Yeah, that's
accessibility
true.
because it's not just about like meeting standards. It's really about approaching it from an equity mindset, and everyone's trying to build inclusive digital communities,
Yep.
and also real world community.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps motivate organizations to take on those challenges. But they can be hard, and at scale, and for small nonprofits, a lot of people are looking for sort of turnkey solutions. It's just not so easy. It requires some knowledge and education and empathy, really, because accessibility can be situational, and if you're in a library and you want to watch a video with captions on, it's not that you necessarily can't hear, but it makes a lot of sense.
Useful. Yeah.
And if you're, I don't know, in a stressful situation, you might be cognitively impaired trying to get information about directions to a place or a thing, right? Your mind's not working well in a crisis. So those are all more complex needs to address when it comes to accessibility. And I think this community in particular is really well attuned to those concerns. So yeah, I'm a little surprised there isn't a little bit more, but it's becoming increasingly a given, which
I agree with that. I do think there's room for just talking about what the accepted standards are and sort of where the WCAG is going. I think there would have been a nice use case for that so people know what to expect, because our clients do get sort of surprised sometimes when those things come up. We've had with the email deliverability issues that are happening over the last, and how many domain updates we've had to go make for all of our clients who all of a sudden are getting, reduced deliverability of their emails and they don't have the right policies set up. So.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot.
Got to get those entries in there.
Other than that, there's a lot of CRMs.
a lot of CRMs. Like I can't. There's new CRMs.
They're doing it better though.
I need a CRM to keep track of all my CRMs.
It's true. There's a lot of them. So.
It's really it's getting kind of intense. A lot of donation and payment
fundraising platforms.
That's always popular.
Yep.
Gotta get the dollars. Got to get the donors. Got to track the donors. For sure. Member management.
Member management. I have not seen a lot of. Where have you seen member management?
A little bit. I mean, sometimes it's baked into the financial financial pieces.
I'm looking for a little bit more of that. I actually talked to one provider, Engaging Networks, who advised me against using their platform for membership.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, we do have a client that uses Engaging.
So Neon's not here. They were here a few years, but I haven't seen them around here for a little while.
Yeah.
It's surprising because this is totally their target market.
Yeah, there's actually a number of vendors I've been thinking I haven't seen that we work with quite a bit. So I'm curious why they choose to or not invest in this particular audience, which seems like they're where they should be, but maybe I'm wrong.
This can only do so much, maybe.
Yep, that's true. I've also seen a lot of SMS, and I've actually gone to a couple sessions on SMS, really? Which I think is really interesting because...
Have you done much of that?
We do very, 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 very little of it, only when our clients ask us to. Okay. And the truth is, the one session I went to talked about when you're dealing with different populations, there are some populations that are literally not checking email. They are not using email. They are not using, and they're all SMS. And so, especially when you're reaching out, not just Gen Z, but like lower income communities, like they live on text. And so it's a interesting way to diversify your audience that I think a lot of marketers and nonprofits are missing. So much higher conversion rate.
There's a lot. I mean, that's why Segment and Twilio merged too, to like try to build out more of that diversity of data pathways.
One of the neatest sessions I went to was the Audubon Society, which you were talking about. And he was talking about diversifying his donor base and how they attacked it. And they took the Audubon Society, if you can imagine who their customer profile looks like, right, is a very 65-year-old white male who loves birding. And so they have this whole onboarding segment or onboarding sequence where the very first email was like how to get started with birding, where they recommended a $700 pair of binoculars because birding is accessible and welcomes all, right?
Yes.
And so they started, what they did is, they started they took their data and they used a tool called TrendSmart that'll match your data against publicly accessible data like name directory, Census Bureau stuff. And so they could identify and put together racial, ideological, ethnic profiles of their donor database. Yeah. Then they started mapping their marketing performance against those segments. Yeah. So like how many of their Black audience are opening emails, interacting with them, engaging with their paid media, et cetera, et cetera. And then they started making small changes in all of their messaging to try to change that. Instead of saying, well, we need more of these people who are interacting, and as an engagement metric, they said we're trying to engage with this metric.
Right.
I thought that was really interesting. They removed the $700 binoculars and said, here's some backyard birds that you can start talking, because that's like the most popular version of birding is backyard birding. My husband's deeply into it right now. Yeah. But I just thought that was neat. And you start paying attention a little bit more to like the things you're recommending in your messaging and how you're, sharing your craft, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I remember hearing I wish I could remember like specifics, but I remember listening to a podcast and it was a Black ornithologist, and he was saying, he faced all kinds of issues because people are kind of freaked, Black man in the forest with a pair of binoculars, like, what are you doing here? Yeah. And like a lot of like, it's not always a smooth experience for him to be exercising his passion, but in sharing it and bringing more people like to it, it's starting to change. I like what the Cornell Lab of Ornithology is doing. They have like a huge database of bird calls, and people contribute to it.
Oh, that's neat.
It's from all over, and because like sometimes the birds migrate, so their songs may change or not in different contexts or different countries, and how they have adapted or become regionalized. and all of that is being processed with AI. They have a pretty cool
Of
app that
course,
you
yeah.
can get, and
We've got the app. I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We're looking at every
recording
leaf and
things.
every flower and every bird call. Like
That's
that's what you
awesome.
do when you get old, it turns out. So
Well,
yeah.
my son's like 7, so he's super
He's into
into it.
it
He
too.
wants to
Yeah, yeah.
record the
That's true.
birds
Yeah.
and
There's that middle age where people
identify
just
them.
don't do that though. Like 20
No,
to maybe 35. Yeah. Too busy.
too
I don't
busy.
know. All right. Any thoughts to wrap us up?
Any thoughts to wrap us up?
You coming back next year?
Most probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Is this always on the West
it's
Coast?
nice. No, every other year. So N10, they are based in Portland,
Yep.
and so this is sort of home base. And then every other year they alternate. It was in Denver last year. I'm not sure what it'll be next year. They'll announce it, I'm sure,
Has it ever
before the
been
end of
East
the
Coast?
conference.
Or do they do kind of like Denver, maybe Salt Lake City,
Maybe
Portland?
Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Might be a
Yeah. It seemed DC would. I've met
DC.
so many people here from DC, which makes a lot of sense since a lot of the big national nonprofits are
Yeah,
based there. So
yeah. It might be more expensive to organize in DC too.
yeah,
That's a
probably
factor
true.
too. They want to make it accessible and not have
Yep.
the ticket prices be too high. So
That's been great.
Portland's been good to them generally.
And it's been fun, like the parties, the food, all of it.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
fun
Hey, I
conference.
mean our party was
Our
off the
party
hook.
was awesome.
It's great.
I think it ended up totally perfectly. So I was very
Right?
happy. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Told you.
so we'll see you here next year.
All right.
Bye.
See you later.